What if I told you there was a winger who'd spend countless nights at parties, dance until sunrise, and still turn up the next day to humiliate defenders with a smile on his face? A player who won the World Cup, a Ballon d'Or, 2 FIFA World Player of the Year awards, and carried Barcelona back to the top of Europe. A magician so good that even Real Madrid fans once stood and applauded him at the Bernabeu. His name? Ronaldinho. In the next 15 minutes, I'll show you how a party-loving winger from Porto Alegre didn't just change football, he made the entire world fall in love with it again, one smile at a time. There are players who played football, and then there was him, Ronaldinho Gaucho, a man who made the ball dance, a magician in boots, the smile that made defenders cry. But before the world called him Ronaldinho, he was just Ronaldo de Assis Moreira in Porto Alegre, a skinny kid from Vila Nova with a football at his feet and a smile too big to ignore. His older brother, Assis, had already paved a path, a talented attacking midfielder who played in France and Portugal. For little Ronaldo, Assis wasn't just family, he was proof that football could take you out of Vila Nova. But where Assis was disciplined and structured, Ronaldinho was pure improvisation. But life struck cruelly. When Ronaldinho was just 8, his father collapsed and died from a sudden heart attack. Overnight, the family lost its anchor. For many kids, that would have been the end of their dreams. For Ronaldinho, it only made the ball feel like home. From then on, he never let go of it. If you wanted to find him, you didn't look at school or on the streets. You looked at the futsal courts, the beach pitches, or the smallest alleyways where kids turn plastic bags into footballs. Ronaldinho played them all. Grass, sand, concrete. It didn't matter. He was always the smallest on the pitch, but size meant nothing when your touch was poetry. Even then, the smile was constant. Rivellino, the Brazilian legend famous for his elastic dribbles, became his idol. Ronaldinho didn't just watch Rivellino's tricks, he recreated them, laughing as he twisted his friends inside out on the futsal court. That smile, that flair, that carefree approach, it was who he was, even as a boy. And then came the game that changed everything. In a youth tournament, his Grêmio side faced a local rival. Final score, 23-0. All 23 goals scored by one kid, a teenager so audacious that even hardened scouts were left speechless. "We knew this was no ordinary player," one coach said. "This boy was touched by something bigger." By the late 1990, Brazil was watching. At just 18, Ronaldinho made his professional debut for Grêmio and immediately became a crowd favourite. His first Copa Libertadores matches weren't just about goals, they were about entertainment. He danced after scoring. He pulled off nutmegs that made veterans shake their heads. He was playing serious football, but with the same joy he had on the futsal courts. And then came 1999, his national breakthrough. In the Rio Grande do Sul State Championship final, Grêmio faced Internacional. Standing in midfield that day was Brazil's 1994 World Cup winning captain, Dunga, a man known for discipline, toughness, and zero tolerance for flair. But against Ronaldinho, even Dunga looked helpless. One flick-flack dribble sent him the wrong way. Minutes later, Ronaldinho juggled past him like a street kid humiliating the neighbourhood bully. The country couldn't believe it. This teenager was embarrassing a World Cup captain. Overnight, Ronaldinho went from promising talent to Brazil's next magician. That same year, he was called up to the national team. He was part of the squad that won Copa America 1999. The Copa America call-up made him a champion at 19, but it was the Confederations Cup where he wrote his name in bold letters. Imagine it, packed stadiums, Brazil against England, and a kid barely old enough to buy a drink lining up a free kick from 40 yards. Most players would cross it, play it safe. Ronaldinho? He curled it straight into the top corner. One strike, and the world had seen the future. The audacity, the fearlessness, The sheer joy of trying something ridiculous and pulling it off. That was Ronaldinho in a single moment. And he wasn't done. By the end of that tournament, he'd scored 6 goals in 5 games, been directly involved in almost everything Brazil created, and walked away with the golden boot and the golden ball. The smile, the tricks, the confidence. It was official. Brazil had found their next great entertainer. By the end of the 2000 season, the world could no longer the boy who laid like the gods were with him. He always had a smile too charming to ignore and a skill too casual for the damage he was causing, so that naturally the whole world were after him. In fact, Arsene Wenger was so close to signing him had it not been for the denial of a work permit by the UK government. So when Paris Saint-Germain paid €30 million to bring Ronaldinho to Europe in 2001, it was less a transfer and more a gamble. Ligue 1 at this point wasn't the epicenter of world football then. The French league was seen as a stepping stone to a bigger career, a place players passed through on their way to Italy, Spain or England. But PSG believed they were buying something different, a showman who could make them relevant again. And they got that, and more than they bargained for. At Paris, Ronaldinho didn't just discover European football, he also discovered Parisian nightlife. The champs, Élysée, became as familiar to him as the Parc des Princes. Teammates joked that they'd see him at 3 a.m. in a nightclub, and at 3 p.m. he'd be the best player on the pitch. The French media obsessed over his habits, one week writing about his dribbles, the next about the clubs he left just before sunrise. Here was a player whom, when the lights were bright, he delivered. Against Troyes, he ran 70 yards with the ball glued to his foot, beating defender after defender before finishing coolly. Against Guingamp, he weaved through a crowded defence, feinted the goalkeeper, and chipped it into the net with the swagger of a street footballer. His free kicks bent around walls with outrageous audacity. Fans came to expect that whenever he touched the ball, something extraordinary could happen. But the contradictions were already clear. His coach, Luis Fernandes, demanded discipline, structure, and commitment. Ronaldinho, meanwhile, treated PSG like a playground. By 2003, the relationship had collapsed. Fernandes raged that his young Brazilian thought PSG were beneath him. Ronaldinho, equally stubborn, began to show up late from international duty and hinted that he needed a bigger stage. That bigger stage had already begun calling, because in the summer of 2002, Ronaldinho went to his first World Cup. It was in that World Cup he truly showed the world that he was more than just flair moments. But the truly defining moment came against England in the quarter-final, a free kick so audacious it silenced a stadium. From 40 yards out, he lifted the ball over the wall's head, a goal so unlikely that even Ronaldinho later smiled and admitted it was part luck, part genius. Brazil went on to lift their 5th World Cup, and Ronaldinho returned to Paris transformed. No longer just PSG's entertainer, he was now a global star. The problem? PSG suddenly felt too small. Ronaldinho had tasted the biggest stage, lifted the biggest trophy, and now the domestic grind of Ligue 1 seemed beneath him. Reports of his nightlife became louder, his performances more inconsistent, and Fernandes more frustrated. By the end of the 2002 season, it was obvious to everyone Ronaldinho would not stay in Paris. And yet, those 2 years mattered. They showed the world exactly who he was, a man who could party all night, then humiliate defenders all day. Paris didn't tame him, it amplified him. His Nike campaign said it all. Remember the name. Paris taught Ronaldinho that you could have the best of both worlds, European success and Brazilian joy. But Paris was only the warm-up. What came next was the main act, a stage so grand it would define him forever. In the summer of 2003, Barcelona were struggling. 2 of their brightest stars, Luis Figo and Ronaldo, had gone in painful circumstances. Both defected to Real Madrid, leaving Barca without stars. Their squad looked tired, their finances shaky, their identity in question. To make things worse, the season before, they finished 6th in La Liga, their lowest position in 15 years. Real Madrid's Galacticos, Zidane, Figo, Ronaldo dominated not just Spain, but the world. Barcelona, meanwhile, looked like a giant in decline. Enter Joan Laporta. The new president knew he needed a symbol, a player who could restore not only wins but belief. He dreamed of Beckham, courted Thierry Henry. Both slipped away. The only option left was a Brazilian whose brilliance was matched only by his unpredictability, Ronaldinho. To many, it felt like a gamble. He wasn't as polished as Beckham, not as disciplined as Henry. His reputation in Paris was already tied to late nights and controversy. But Laporta rolled the dice and took the gamble. But from the moment he touched the ball at Camp Nou, it was clear. They had found their saviour. His debut goal against Sevilla said it all. Picking the ball up inside his own half, he surged forward, weaving past challenges, before unleashing a rocket that smashed in off the crossbar. The stadium shook. This wasn't football as they knew it. This was a spectacle. And the fans fell in love instantly. Ronaldinho wasn't just scoring, he was entertaining. Every game was a show. Step-overs, elasticos, no-look passes, the kind of things you'd only try on the street. He made work under floodlights. He has something special every time he touches the ball, Frank Rijkaard admitted after just a few sessions. But Barcelona's love story with Ronaldinho wasn't only about flair, it was about revival. With him in the team, the club rose from mid-table to second place in his first season. By 2005, they were champions of Spain again. That night, they lifted the trophy, cemented his Ballon d'Or status. He was officially the best in the world. By 2006, they were champions of Europe, and Ronaldinho wasn't just part of it. He was the heartbeat. There are moments he created that still feel mythical. Like on November 2005, at the Santiago Bernabeu. Barcelona versus Real Madrid. Ronaldinho scored twice, slaloming through defenders, gliding past helpless challenges, until the home crowd, sworn enemies, stood and applauded him. That had only ever happened once before, for Diego Maradona, for Ronaldinho to make the Bernabeu rise. That was immortality. And then there was Paris, 2006 Champions League final. Barcelona beat Arsenal to lift their first European Cup in 14 years. Ronaldinho didn't score, but his fingerprints were everywhere, dragging defenders, creating chaos, setting Eto'o free. Yet even in glory, the dual life continued. Barcelona knew he loved the nightlife, and they tried to accommodate it. Some reports even claimed his contract quietly allowed 2 party nights a week. But he made it work. Somehow, he balanced the impossible, being both football's most feared opponent and its happiest showman. Between 2003 and 2006, Ronaldinho played like nobody else. 94 goals, 71 assists, countless smiles. He wasn't just Barcelona's superstar, he was the world's joy. But every magic act has its limit, and as Barcelona's young prince Lionel Messi began to rise, Ronaldinho's late nights started catching up with him. The glow of the party was still there, but the spark on the pitch began to dim. Still, for those 5 years, Barcelona was his canvas, and he painted it with samba. By 2008, Ronaldinho was still a superstar, still smiling, still capable of pulling a rabbit out of the hat whenever he felt like it. But behind the magic, things were changing. He was missing training sessions. His nights out stretched longer than they used to. Teammates whispered that his focus wasn't what it once was. The tricks, the nutmegs, the joy, they were still there. But the consistency, the sharpness, slowly fading. Pep Guardiola, just promoted to manage Barcelona, saw it before anyone else. A rookie coach with everything to prove, and his first major decision was brutal. Ronaldinho had to go. Not because the magician was finished, He was only 28. But because Pep feared his influence on the next generation, especially a shy Argentine teenager named Lionel Messi, Pep knew Barca needed discipline, structure, a new identity. Ronaldinho, for all his brilliance, didn't fit that picture anymore. And so, Ronaldinho was sold to AC Milan. For Serie A, it felt like a dream, the world's most entertaining player arriving in one of Europe's most historic leagues. The San Siro welcomed him like royalty. Milan shirts with his name flew off the shelves. On the pitch, flashes of the old magic returned. A no-look pass here, a mazy dribble there. He scored in a Milan derby, celebrated with that trademark grin, and for a while it felt like maybe, just maybe, the party could keep going. But Serie A was different. Slower, more tactical, less forgiving. Ronaldinho still partied as if he were in Barcelona or Rio. The Italian paparazzi loved it. Pictures of him leaving nightclubs made as many headlines as his goals. His body began to show the signs of that lifestyle. He wasn't the same lithe figure who once sprinted from halfway to score at the Bernabeu. He was heavier, less explosive, relying more and more on his technique. And yet, even in decline, his genius shone. He scored 26 goals in 2.5 seasons. He humiliated defenders with feints and flicks that no one else would dare attempt. There were still nights when the San Siro gasped in unison, when time seemed to stop, and Ronaldinho reminded everyone that he was different. But the truth was unavoidable. Milan didn't get the Ronaldinho who conquered the world. They got the Ronaldinho who had already started to slide. The player who had peaked too soon, burned too brightly, and now carried the weight of his own habits. By 2011, the experiment was over. Ronaldinho packed his bags again, this time heading back to Brazil. His European chapter had closed. And so, Milan became the symbol of Ronaldinho's transition from world beater to fading star. He still entertained, still smiled, still partied, but the balance had tipped. The parties were winning. By 2011, Ronaldinho was done with Europe. Barcelona had moved on. Milan had tried and failed to keep him focused. And so he went home back to Brazil, back to where it all began. When Flamengo announced his signing, the country went mad. 40,000 fans packed the Maracanã just to see him hold up the shirt. For a moment, it felt like football royalty had returned to reclaim his throne. The prodigal son, finally home. But Flamengo knew exactly who they were signing. This wasn't the hungry teenager from Grêmio. This was the Ronaldinho who had spent a decade conquering the world and half of it in nightclubs. So they did something no other club would dare. They put it in writing. The contract reportedly allowed him 2 to 3 nights a week to do whatever he wanted. Partying wasn't forbidden anymore. It was sanctioned. It was part of the deal. The message was clear. Keep Ronaldinho happy and he'll keep us entertained. And that's exactly what happened. One night you'd see him on Copacabana dancing until sunrise. The next, you'd see him at the Maracanã, twisting defenders inside out, scoring goals that made you forget the chaos off the pitch. Rio's nightlife loved him. The city became his playground. Pictures of Ronaldinho leaving clubs at 4 a.m. were plastered across tabloids. Instead of shame, it became fascination. Could this man really drink all night and still dominate the pitch the next day? The answer was yes. He still had the vision, the technique, the flair. He curled in free kicks. He slipped passes through impossible gaps. He chipped keepers like it was nothing. The numbers backed it up too. Goals, assists, match-winning performances, all while living the life of a rock star. For Flamengo fans, it was intoxicating. For the media, it was irresistible. Ronaldinho wasn't just a footballer anymore. He was a cultural phenomenon, the living embodiment of Brazil's love affair with joy, music, and football. But there was a deeper truth hiding in plain sight. Ronaldinho wasn't just indulging, he was proving his philosophy. "When I'm happy, I play better," he once said. And Flamengo gave him the freedom to test that theory like never before. For a brief, brilliant stretch, it worked. Flamengo literally wrote partying into his contract, and Ronaldinho still delivered. It was the ultimate proof that for him, discipline was never the fuel. Joy was. Of course, it couldn't last forever. No lifestyle that extreme ever does. But for a season, Brazil had its hero back. A magician who didn't train like everyone else, didn't live like everyone else, but still played like no one else on earth. After Flamengo, you'd think Ronaldinho's story would slow down. But he wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. In 2012, he signed for Atlético Mineiro, a club starving for silverware, desperate for a miracle. And somehow, Ronaldinho became that miracle. This was supposed to be the twilight of his career, but instead, he produced one last act of magic. In 2013, he led Atlético Mineiro to their first ever Copa Libertadores. The crowds at the Estadio Independencia didn't just cheer for him, they worshipped him. And as always, he did it with a smile. Tricks, passes, free kicks. He was still giving fans moments they'd never forget. When Atletico lifted that Libertadores trophy, Ronaldinho cried. For once, the party king showed a softer side. It was proof that even near the end, he could still bend the game to his will. But while the trophies glittered, the nightlife never left. Stories of late-night samba sessions in Belo Horizonte spread like wildfire. Reporters joked that Ronaldinho lived two lives, superstar by day, carnival by night. And even though his legs were slowing, his reputation as football's ultimate showman kept growing. After Atletico, he bounced to Querétaro in Mexico, where 40,000 fans showed up just to watch him juggle a ball at his unveiling. Then back to Brazil with Fluminense. The clubs changed, but the story didn't. Flashes of brilliance, followed by flashes of camera bulbs outside nightclubs. And then came the end. Quiet, almost unceremonious. Ronaldinho never had the farewell tour. Some legends enjoy. He just slipped away. Retired in 2015 after a short spell at Fluminense. Still smiling, still playing the game on his own terms. But his influence didn't fade. If anything, it grew. He became a global ambassador for football, appearing at charity matches, giving clinics, and showing kids that football was meant to be fun. And even when life threw him into chaos, like his surreal stint in a Paraguayan prison in 2020 after a fake passport scandal, he still managed to bring joy. Ronaldinho scored, assisted, and won a prison tournament 11-2, laughing all the way. Even behind bars, he couldn't stop entertaining. That's Ronaldinho in a nutshell. For most, greatness comes from discipline, repetition, and sacrifice. For him, greatness came from joy, from never forgetting that the ball is meant to be played with, not worked on. Yes, his career was shorter than it should have been. Yes, the parties caught up with him. But ask any fan, from Barcelona to Belo Horizonte, from Paris to Porto Alegre, and they'll tell you, no one ever made football feel like Ronaldinho did. Ronaldinho proved something revolutionary. You don't have to choose between being great and having fun. While the football world obsessed over diet plans and sleep schedules, he danced through nightclubs and danced past defenders with equal grace. He showed us that the best football comes from joy, not discipline. That a smile can be more powerful than a gym session. That sometimes the secret to greatness isn't working harder, it's never forgetting why you fell in love with the game in the first place. Other players trained to be perfect. Ronaldinho partied to be happy. And happiness, it turns out, was the most devastating weapon of all. So the next time someone tells you that you need to sacrifice everything for success, remember Ronaldinho. Remember that the greatest artist in football history painted his masterpieces with a cocktail in one hand and a football at his feet.